Back in Assetto Corsa Competizione. There we go. Back in Assetto Corsa Competizione for setups. I am in the Ferrari 488, the David Perel Team Rinaldi Racing. Anyway, setup. Tires. Electronics. Fuel strategy. And of course you can customize your different pit stop strategies. Mechanical grip. Dampers. And aero. First off, I want to talk about the mechanical grip section. The wheel rate, or the spring rate, the number is in newtons per meter, so if you were to put it in newtons per millimeter, it'd be on the front wheels 163.8 newtons per millimeter, or 16.38 kilograms per millimeter. Yeah, those are the usable numbers. It's just a really large number with lots of zeros. Same with the rear spring rates. Anyway, I've tried different stiffnesses in the front. This car has a tendency to oversteer. Actually, this needs to be changed from the last time I changed it. Oh, 8. There we go. And no matter what, when the car gets into a big high angle, slip angle slide, it snaps. It does a snap understeer if you try to catch it. And so usually front end stiffness affects that trait. And even if I go with a softer front spring, it doesn't alleviate that problem. So I've chosen this stiffness for the front, and since the car oversteers a lot, I've chosen a softer rear spring. And that's that. I don't want to go too much into detail as to what stiffnesses do what. To be more complicated of a video. Damping, I think this needs to be up at 11. There we go. That reduces the snappiness. I forgot to change that. I was just previously messing with the settings, and that's where it was. Alright, and then the ride height. This is the major factor for the vehicle performance, even at low speed. I don't know how much the aero affects at low speed, but it does affect low speed in this game. And pay attention to that flickering number at the bottom. It's at negative 5.1 or 5.2 or 5.3 even. I found that any less than negative 5 or so, the car becomes very, very oversteery. So if I lower the front end here, it goes down to 4, 3, and so on. And around 5% different front end or front aero variation. I'm assuming that means 5% less front aero. I don't know what exactly that means, less force or less angle or what. But around negative 5% is good. And I've noticed at this is the maximum ride height is the only way to achieve this number without having negative rake, or where the front end is higher than the rear. And generally you don't want the front end to be higher than the rear. At high speeds the car can catch air, and in certain cars, if you've seen David Coulthard's crash on the Mulsanne Straight, his car flipped in the air because air got underneath the car. So anyway, you don't want the rear end to be lower than the front end. So obviously you can have the rear end the same height, and if the bumps cause the car to pitch up and down, then it can still cause the front end rake to be higher than the rear end. But anyway, at 80 millimeters is the only way to achieve that negative 5% without having a a really high front end. As you can see, it's at negative 2.3% at the full minimum ride height, and the only way to achieve anywhere near the negative 5% is to have the front end at maximum anyway, and the rear end much lower, which I don't like to do. So I'm raising the rear end all the way up as well. And I recommend trying it for yourself, and in this car in particular, because it's so on edge, it's so twitchy. Any little change in this aero variation will cause it to oversteer, and you can experiment for yourself what values work for you. Anyway, negative 5. That's the takeaway. I'm assuming that will work in most every other car because the geometries are relatively the same, whether I drive the McLaren, which I drove in a previous video, or this car, or another mid-engine car like the NSX. That's probably going to be around negative 5% for the stable aero variation. Anyway, onto the driving. This is a long talking video. I want to get to the driving. I want to save this because I changed some settings. Alright, continue and drive. So this is a long pit straight. I'm gonna have to go through the whole thing right here. It'd be nice if we started in the other end. And I'm obeying pit speed limits because I want to. Even though it says the pit speed is at 80 kilometers per hour. Can I change that in the settings? Anyway, we're limited to 49. Alright, here we go. And just from that short drive, the tire pressures are low. And of course I have the tire pressure set to the minimum before they're automatically too low. I don't know how to explain that. I don't exactly know what optimum tire pressures are. This peaks around 26 in the rear and 25 in the front, PSI. So I can crank the wheel like I just did. Whoa, I just lost it. So it doesn't snap loose, purely because of those aero settings. The tires are cold, so it still broke loose and I couldn't catch it. But it didn't just whip around and do a full 360. So here we go, I crank the wheel again. It slides, but it's catchable as the tires heat up. And of course I can't put down a competitive time because my throttle pedal is flickering, my brake pedal sometimes turns on. I like to take this in fourth in this car, and the McLaren is third. So now the car is actually drivable, and whoa, there it goes sliding, and it's catchable when it slides. And I've noticed if you drive a car that is more oversteery or more neutral, I guess you should say, because you're not really oversteering, you're not drifting the car, but more neutral. The car control rating, I'm at 59 cc, as you can see at the top right. If you go to the cc bracket, it's at 59. When I was driving the McLaren that understeered with those settings I was using, my CC was going down. It dropped down to 51%. Whoa. I think I got it up to 57 driving this car before I switched to the McLaren. And then as I was driving the McLaren, it was going down. Of course, my brake pedals are dragging. Okay. So if you want to increase your CC rating, you have to drive a more oversteery car. Or I should say a more neutral steer car. So this is actually really fast. Whoa, I took it a little too fast. It's starting to break loose. And with these settings in this car, I can take that almost full throttle right there. Very close. Which is supposed to be like the real thing. I take that full throttle in good conditions. My tires aren't quite hot yet. And of course, hopefully my brake doesn't drag next time through. I'm going to drive a couple laps because the car doesn't drive when the car doesn't drive well when the tires are cold. So I need to drive a few laps to get the tires heated up. And that's catchable slide. It's sliding for a long time, but it's catchable. I could drive in, oh, it's the wrong button, in this view. Oh, it's the helmet cam, I don't like that. It was wobbling, I need to change the view settings. The helmet cam was wobbling. So you can see my steering input. You can see when I'm oversteering. How much steering input I see there is oversteer. And it's catchable. Actually, this car actually drives really well now that I've figured out that the tires are dog poop when cold. So my next setup video, I'm going to be driving the McLaren, and I'm going to try to get that car to oversteer through the aerodynamics. Yeah, that was almost full throttle. That was really nice. There's a lot of grip once the tires heat up. A little too late on the brakes. And there's still low speed tire physics that are really weird. The car will really oversteer in that chicane, even though you're going really slow. Let's see if I can take this flat out. If I crash, I'll probably end the video. Flat out. A little bit wide. There's actually understeering. I got aerodynamic understeer up the crest. So it's stable now. That's nice. And it's purely by the aerodynamics mostly, because the spring rates are what I was using to make the car, or what I was using when the car was oversteering a lot. And it's purely due to the ride height change that I made. The brake is dragging again. So now the tires are heated up. It drives real nice. It's actually understeering a bit. Now all I need to do is focus on my safety rating, raise it up to 70%, and I'll be able to drive on the ranked server and bump up my competitive ranking from 0 up to whatever I get from competing with a broken wheel. Hopefully I get my finances in order, get the mountain bikes I want, and then get the Fanatec or whatever else is out by the time I get my finances in order. I could just go buy another G29, but I really don't want to. Alright. And I'll just complete this lap. Let's see, can I take this full throttle? Oh, lifted. I could take that full throttle. I think I was a little late on the brake. Nope, I made it. You have to go extra slow here. Yep, and that's that. Those are my settings, and the car actually drives well now. Main takeaway. It was every mid-engine car, likely. I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to try it in the next video. Aerodynamics variation should be around -5%, maybe 4.8 or something close. Till the next one. Oh, that's weird. Wrong button. Oh. Okay. Later.